say whatever, didn't I? And I don't really mean that. Let me mention this too while I'm thinking on that note. We're going to see Horror of Dracula. And the version that we're going to see, if you've gotten the recent digital remaster and so forth, has a lot of scenes that were put back into the film. Not exactly family friendly. We are seeing the family friendly version tonight, which is still a fantastic film. That's the one I saw, and there's no reason not to love it. So, but my first question, and just however you want to approach it, is why is horror hosting important to people? Why do you think people respond to that format? We'll defer to the youngest member of the panel first, Bilbo.
What was the question again?
Why do you think people respond to that format? Either the horror host in general, or the showing of the movie on local TV, or what do you think?
Well, I think first of all you have the fact that people like the movies themselves, because the movies were produced and run as theater productions, and people did go to see them. I think the horror movie host adds to the entire appearance and the entire production of the piece. And actually the host many times takes a life different from the movie. The host becomes the program in many instances, I think. I mean, I don't mean to say that because I was a horror movie host, but I believe it does. I believe that you have a lot of people who tune in because of the hosting of what everybody sitting here made an effort to do on their program, was to host the program. And I think that's what attracted a lot of people to it, the fact that it was more than just a movie. I mean, you also had a horror movie hostess named Elvira, that a lot of people tuned in to see. Actually, Elvira always had a lot more going for her than I ever did. But I think the host and the movie together becomes a combination that attracts the person to it.
Other comments? What do you guys think?
Well, you might remember locally we actually replaced Elvira because we were cheaper. Well, that's true. So originally we started out as a kid show, we ended up at midnight, but still, I always felt like it was almost as if you were sitting there watching the movie with people at home, and they're like playing along, or they're watching, and you're watching. You can say something about it, although I admit that we often strayed from any kind of commentary on the movie. In fact, sometimes we strayed a lot from talking about the movie. In fact, often I didn't even say what the movie was. but sometimes I didn't know what the movie was. Anyway, but still, I feel like it was a watch-along thing, and I think people still like hosted movies. But it's not really possible to convince management of that sometimes. So.
Well, let's see. In my case, we were in a situation at WAVY in 1975 that on Saturday night they had a horror movie package. And in 1975, I had just moved to Norfolk, Virginia from Richmond, Virginia, where I had hosted a daily live children's show for 3 years. And so I left WTVR up here and went down to go to work for Wavy, and I thought, there's no local television. In 1975, in Hampton Roads, Virginia, the only local shows were the news shows and the public affairs shows. So I went to the general manager and I said, hey, you're showing a horror movie. Why don't you let us just have some fun with it? Let us do some live hosts, break up. His response to that was, on Saturday night, again, 1975, on Saturday night, there's nobody watching. You're not going to have a large enough audience. I said, let us try it anyway. So he said, okay, you can do one. So we're going to do a Halloween special, 1975. 3 weeks before that was supposed to air, NBC said, we're going to start a show at 11:30 on Saturday night, called Saturday Night Live. So I went to the general manager, I said, we'll go on at 1. We'll go on after it's over. And he said, there is not going to be anybody watching at all. Let us try it. So that first night, the very first night that we were on, I put a trivia question in. The movie that we were showing was House of Frankenstein. And there was a character in it that was a gypsy. and the gypsy was played by an actress named Elena Verdugo. At that point in time, she was starring on a very popular TV show called Marcus Welby, MD. She was the nurse. So we put a trivia question in. Who is this lady? We got 300 phone calls. I went to the general manager on Monday morning. I said, we've got 300 calls on that trivia question. We weren't even given a prize. We just said, if you know, call. So they put us on the next week, and we started doing it, weekly after that. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that in the early days, there were no VCRs. If you wanted to watch the show, you had to stay up. And we came on at 1 a.m. and people watched, Saturday Night Live. They were watching Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and those folks. And then they just stayed with it, and we tried to be as silly as they were. That was the whole point. But we tried to make it about Hampton Roads, in those days, Tidewater, and everything that was going on in Tidewater. And people loved that. They enjoyed it. So.
That's great. I got the word from management that we should pick up the mics and pass them. So next time, we'll make sure we do that because these people pay big money to see you guys. So let me ask you, and we're going to try to get to the film around 8:30. We'll go as long as you guys want, as long as that doesn't infringe on them. But I have no concept of time, so let's keep a watch on that because I can go all night. I guess my next question is, I want to give you guys an opportunity to tell your favorite story. Whatever is, well, again, your favorite story that you can tell with, you're right. But especially as it relates to fans, because the horror host is definitely a reflection of the fans and vice versa. So.
Bill, you want to start? Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me? All right. First of all, I should explain, there have been quite a few people who stopped me tonight and said, you don't have your makeup on tonight. And I would like to just simply point out the fact that this is what I actually look like. This is makeup. I would imagine the most interesting story is the first program that we ever did. The general manager of the station decided that I was going to do the hosting of the horror movie. I was employed by the station. I had a regular job. I did things every day. And one day they came and said, you are going to host the horror movie. And I wasn't really terribly wild about this. And I said to him, that I don't know that I really want to do this. I live here. I have a home here. I have a family. I don't know that I want to go in the air and look like an absolute babbling idiot. And he allowed us how he understood this, and he understood that this was a democracy. And in a democracy, I did not have to do a program that I didn't really feel like doing. But it was also necessary to remember that in a democracy, there was nothing that said I had to work for WXEX-TV Channel 8. That being the case, and with democracy in action going for me, how could I go wrong? So there I was, in the makeup, in the costume, hosting the first program. I had never done this before. This was something brand new to me and to the people at the station. As you will probably notice as I talk, I have a tendency to ramble. Once I get a microphone, I talk. So we started the program off, and also a big surprise to most people would be the fact that the program was not scripted. There was no really big script written. I just simply made everything up as I went along. The reason for that being is that I have a terrible memory. I couldn't memorize anything anybody wrote. The first program that we were doing, we got it started, and the station had built a very nice set, staging, to do this. It had all kinds of things. It had stone walls, it had a coffin, and it had 2 candlesticks with real candles, live flames, none of this electric stuff, real live flames, which were in back of where I stood. So we got into the program, I started talking, I started rambling on and on and on and on and on, and as I looked out in the audience where the camera people were, their eyes were starting to get big, like dinner plates. And I thought, well, maybe this is going better than I thought it would. Then I could see past the cameras into the control room. And in the control room, I could see people standing there pointing at me. And I thought, well, maybe this really will work. You never can tell. So I finished up. I finally threw it into the movie, and 2 people in the camera crew ran up, grabbed me, threw me in the ground, and stomped on my cape. I had backed into the candles, and my cape was going up in flames.
Oh my God.
And I remember saying, why didn't somebody say something about it? I could have gone up in flames. And they all said, but it looked so good. And I think that has kind of stuck with me ever since. The only other one that came close was one time WLEE Radio, which was owned by the same people that owned WXEX TV, had a basketball team. The disc jockeys had a basketball team. And they had me playing basketball on their team, which was definitely, anybody who's seen me play basketball knows that that's not a good thing if you want to win a game. But anyway, I would have somebody from the WLEE crew come in, and we would talk about the upcoming game for the next week. And we would just throw a basketball back and forth. I threw it to the disc jockey. He missed the ball. It rolled across the floor. We didn't really need the ball, so we kept talking. The ball rolled out past the camera operator. The camera operator thought we needed the ball. He picked it up and threw it back at us. I am talking to the disc jockey back and forth, and I look up when the ball is about a ½ an inch from my nose. The ball proceeds to slam into my nose, which knocks me and the coffin all right over the back of the set. With a loud crunch, crackling, crunching, banging noise, the last shot in the scene is a disc jockey looking over the set, looking at this debris of people and coffin in the back. This picture slowly fades to black. At that point, everybody in the control room gets up and runs over to the videotape machine to see how it looks. I finally get up and struggle out, and I say, wasn't anyone going to come and help me? Why didn't somebody come help me? And they said, we wanted to see how good it looked. And I think that's, those are probably the 2 most exciting things that happened to me. And despite all that, I can still move around. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I'm going to keep it clean and like, but wholesome family, yes, entertainment. One thing though I will say just briefly is that usually try to come up with different funny bits doing the show. Of course, grew up watching Bill, the Roman Body, and as a teenager watched Dr. Mad Blood, because when Channel 12 would sign off the air, Saturday Night Live, Wavy 10 would come in clear as a bell, boom, and you watch that, so that was great. But one of the things, I don't remember what show or what episode it was, just started making up some silly stuff, because everything was not scripted, it was just goofy. And for some reason I started talking about Yoo-Hoo, the chocolate drink. And it's like, oh yeah, well, this Yoo-Hoo is great. Oh, I can't stop drinking Yoo-Hoo. I'm just addicted to it, whatever. I just thought it was a funny bit. Most people started sending me Yoo-Hoo. Bottles and cases. I never drank Yoo-Hoo before. I just thought it was a chocolate drink like Ovaltine or whatever. So I actually opened one up and tasted it. It's awful! And for years, people kept sending me Yoo-Hoo. God bless them. I appreciate that they sent it, but it's like, why couldn't I have said it like Kool-Aid or grape jelly or something?
Champagne or diamonds or...
That's right, champagne. Oh,
Man, I really love money.
money. We like large quantities of money. No, and honestly, we were doing a sketch and he dropped one, like between us, and it went all up the side of my coat, all over the stuff that was there, and it never came out. Never. This is a different coat. Never came out, not ever. Well, a similar situation of wanting to do it or not. I mean, with us, originally we did a series. I was the one picking the movies, so we did a series of shows called Bad Movie Weekend, which probably nobody remembers. It was a long time ago, but and it was supposed to be hosted by disc jockeys. And I wrote up paragraphs of here's why you should watch this bad movie, even though it's really bad. Here's what's funny about it. Here's what's enjoyable about it. They didn't read any of it. So we're like, okay, well, what am I going to do about this? So I hosted their hosting of the movie. And that's how we started doing this. I mean, I was just supposed to be writing it. I wasn't supposed to be involved. But on the other hand, then the general manager called me in one day and he said, "You should do a weekly show." And I went, "Oh yeah, I should."
Okay, let's see. 1977, the show had been on the air, the Mad Blood show had been on the air for 3 years at that point. And on a Sunday afternoon, I went out to the oceanfront to see somebody that I really admired a lot. Some of the folks here in the room are going to know who I'm talking about. Frank Gorshin. Okay. Well, in addition to doing all the incredible things that he did on film, he was also a terrific stand-up comedian. And so he was playing at the Blue Dolphin nightclub out at the oceanfront, and I made a point of going out to see him because I've been a huge fan forever. And I'm sitting in the audience looking up at this man, and he says, "You know," he says, "when I finished my gig last night, I went back to the hotel room, and I turned on the TV, and here's this crazy mad scientist on there. And he's going, la-di-di-di-di-di-di." And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm sitting in the audience and Frank Gorshin is doing me. Doesn't get any better than that. That's it.
That's awesome. Okay, we're pretty close on time, and I want to keep these people here all day. If we could take a couple questions from the audience, if you like. You may have to, speak loud and proud like you mean it, and I can't see a thing. All I've got is lights in my eyes. So if I'm missing you, it's not personal. Well, maybe it is, but I'm going to pretend it's not personal. So would anybody like to ask any of these folks a question?
I have one right here.
Okay.
She can't see
Okay. Do you have a mic with you, Katie?
I do not have a mic. I'm happy to come down and grab one and run it up. She can be really loud. I can be really loud.
Okay, go ahead.
This is a question for Bone and Body. Can you play the ukulele for us?
You've asked for the ukulele.
Yes.
You've never heard me play the ukulele, have you? Well, do we have any music lovers in the crowd?
Yes.
Well, you may want to leave then before I start. I will make an attempt. This, incidentally, is my ukulele case, and this, with the exception of me, is the only thing that remains of the original program. Everything else has been vanished or destroyed or just sort of gone away, but the ukulele case remains. So for everybody that's ready, I will first let me tune it up. I don't want to stand up here and play and sound stupid. Hold on a second. That's close enough.
He always plays that song, but everybody loves Beethoven.
It's an original composition.
Is that right? Didn't you tell me it was like a camp director that taught you that? Did I dream that? Did I dream that, Bill? I thought you said you learned at a camp or something.
It's original.
Oh, okay. Questions? I know we had a young man right there.
No.
What is your favorite horror movie?
Question.
Favorite horror movie?
Let's get the mic.
I don't know that I can tell you the favorite horror movie because we've looked at a lot of them. The first one that scared the poop out of me was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The first one. When I saw that, I was about 12 years old and I had nightmares for a week. So that still holds a real special place for me.
A special place.
Special place. And more like probably Bride of Frankenstein. I like old classic movies like that, and that was the first one that I really remember going, wow, I was about 8.
I think there's a lot of them, but my favorite of all time has still got to be The Abominable Dr. Fives with Vincent Price.
Oh, that's a good one.
Just because it's a little bit of combination of horror and humor and just bizarre, and I just love it.
I don't know that I actually have a favorite horror movie. The horror movies that I actually really liked were the original one with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. I really liked those movies. I thought they were good movies, and I know that the techniques and the production standards and all that compared to today's movies are completely old school. But I still think they were really good movies, and I think I'd have to call those are my favorite movies.
Good question. Can we get another one? Yes, sir.
This is for all of you. What is your current thought on the current landscape of horror movie hosts like Sean Kotz and just your opinions on the current landscape of it?
The only one that I actually get to see at this point to any large extent, with the exception of the one that's on Channel 23 that I have actually had the pleasure of being a part of several times. The only other one that I actually see is Svengoolie. And I think he does a good show. I think a lot goes into it, and I find some of what he does entertaining. And now what he would say if someone asked him about me, I really don't know. So other than saying that I really do like his show, and I really like the show that's on Channel 23 at the present time, and they're different. The programs are different, and this is part of what makes a hosted program something that people will watch, is the fact that it is different. It takes on a personality of the host. And I like what Svengoolie does, and I like the programs on Channel 23. I really like the one on Channel 23 where I got to play the ukulele with the host. That was fun.
I am a big fan of Svengoolie. I watch that whenever I can see it, and I really like how the humor of his show sort of, and the slapstick, and I like how he actually will pause and tell you the history of the movie and the different people in the cast and what other movies and films they've been in. The other ones, I'm drawing a blank. The Monster, the one that's I think it's Northern Virginia.
Monster Madhouse.
Monster Madhouse. Yeah, I really like that one. There's others, but I mean, I wish there were more. I mean, I am a fan of that genre, and I wish there was more of this to watch.
I don't know that I can speak from working at a TV station for many, many years. It's a very hard situation because so many things are so sales driven. It's very difficult to convince them to allow you to do that kind of thing now. And I mean, in our case, the station used to show movies all the time. We don't show any movies anymore. We have a second digital station now that shows movies, but that situation's more complicated and so on. It's a hard thing to do, and even from speaking inside a station, you know, it's rough.
Well, when we began doing the program in 1975 on Wavy, Channel 10 owned the Universal 77 Horror Hits package. Best movie package ever released. Had all the original Frankenstein, Dracula, all of those. Then we moved to Channel 15, and they had us show public domain films. Greatly reduces the number of movies you can show. Then we went to WTVZ, and they purchased a couple of TV shows. They purchased Thriller and Alfred Hitchcock. The problem for horror movie hosts today is movies. Getting a movie to show. With TNT and everybody else buying all the movie packages, you're not going to find a local station that's going to own the Universal Horror Hits package because it's not available to them anymore. So it's really difficult in today's environment for a horror host to have something to play with. And if they do, and they do it well, and it's creative, bravo. I think local entertainment put into something like that is priceless for folks, because it brings the local touch to it that they're not going to get anyplace else. I mean, local TV stations mostly are doing national news and national programming. There aren't local shows anymore. So if there's somebody that can do a horror host program, I say absolutely bravo.
I'm going to weigh in on this too, because I've done 2 documentaries on horror hosts. One on Virginia Creepers, which was about Virginia's horror hosts from '58 to 2008, which is when I think we started that film. And then we did a follow-up on the Bowman Body, which I think a lot of people in this room have seen. And we might do a third, right, Jerry? Okay. You got it on tape. It would be nice to do. One of the consequences of that is I may be, of all the people living on this planet, I may actually know more horror hosts than any other human being. And I've met them from all over the country, and sometimes it's just a very brief meeting, and sometimes it's been long, very long-lasting friendships. If you're interested in the format, you can find it right and left online. YouTube, and there are a lot of people who just simply do shows on YouTube, and that's their only outlet, or they do it on their local cable access, and then that gets to some format like YouTube or Vimeo. And I encourage you to check them out. It's interesting because what you used to have driven by local TV markets was a local identity stamp, a texture of the community. And that's one of the things you don't see as much anymore. For everything that Sven Gulli does that's just great, he has to appeal to a national audience, and that's a little bit different from somebody who's talking to you about local street names, or making jokes about the car dealership down the road, or dropping a politician's name who's on city council. And that's the thing that has probably changed the most. In a way, so it's a mixed bag. I think horror hosting in many ways was a dying art before the internet. So the internet has definitely done a lot to bring it to people. I see a lot of kids, and I see a lot of, when we do events and we're, pushing the films or whatever. No, when I'm offering you an excellent deal on a DVD, I see a lot of people coming up with their children, and they're really trying, they want to connect that. They say, this is what we had. It's almost impossible to explain. It is very rewarding, however, because every now and then you can show them an old existing tape, or you can show them an old, a documentary or whatever's available, and they start to get it. They start to feel it. And we're getting close to closing time, so we'll tell you this. My son, who's had the misfortune of growing up with an obsessive horror host fan, and has met as many as I have probably, I guess he was about 11, 12, something like that. I'd never seen Night of the Living Dead. And he had wanted to see it. And there's a wonderful horror host up in D.C., Count Gordeval, who had gotten some airplay around here too at one point on cable. And he had a copy available of his original showing, because that is public domain. Nobody owns the rights to that, so you can't use it. And he had his original 1978 showing available on DVD. I snatched it up and I brought it home. It came in the mail. I walked down to my mail. I live very rurally. It's like, oh, I couldn't wait to get down the driveway to put this on and watch it. Put me right back in 1978. I was very fortunate. I had a chance to see Bill and Dr. Madblood, Jerry, and Gore Duvall, because my family had moved around Virginia, so I got exposure. So I knew this was going to be great. And he was reluctant. He said, I don't know. I want to see it. He's a purist. I want to see it in its original form. I said, yeah, trust me, watch this. When we were done, he looked at me and he said, you were right. That was really cool. And I think that's the thing that we all kind of want to tap into, is that it's a little bit beyond words. You just can't quite explain it. But what it does tell you, this is why, Bill. Oh, let me mention this. June 22nd coming up is the 44th anniversary of Bill's first show.
Wow.
And then Gary's show premiered premiered in 1975. We're coming up on the 40th anniversary of that. And then, when did you guys first go on? 27 years. And people are still coming out to see it. I don't know.
They tell us we got to keep doing it until we get it right.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what that says, but I think it's personally really great. So let's give these guys a round of applause. Thank you very much for showing up. One more time, I want to mention that on Channel 23, right now you have a really good quality horror host show, Midnight Frights. And every year, I don't know if you guys plan to do it again this year, but I know you typically do a Halloween special that has been that's been available online and actually on Halloween night, right? In the past, so that's really cool. I mean, do that, support it. It's very unique. It's a uniquely American thing. I think it's just fantastic. So thank you for coming out. Let's give these guys one more round.